opportunity to meet this morning, so I'm not going to talk that much, and I'll open it up to others who were not able to attend that meeting. We have some questions for Dr. Ryan.
Why are you interested in coming to ASU?
Well, certainly, as I mentioned before, teaching has been an area of great interest for me. It's not something I really get to do much of at all in my current position, other than the little bits I get for resident teaching, some public teaching. There's a high school, a medical high school that actually gears students towards medical professions in the area that have had me come out and talk about audiology a couple times. But outside of those little hour or two presentations, I don't get much teaching, and I have a love of teaching. I've always wanted to teach, and while I enjoy teaching my patients, it's not quite the same as sharing it to the next generation and kind of molding little audiologists to be. So that was certainly one of the biggest draws, as well as having more of a team to work with, because I'm the only one in implants at my location, and then there's another audiologist who does some at our other location. It's mostly just me, and I want to work with more people and have a little bit more of that team approach.
So do they have, so they don't have a team approach with CIs then, where the surgeon and audiologist, speech pathologist?
So it's mostly just me and the surgeon. Because we're primarily adults, we haven't really had the speech component. We're just trying to start bringing that in the oral rehab side, on the post-operative side, but not a whole lot for the pre-operative side. Interestingly, in North Carolina, there's what's called beginnings for children with hearing loss. So from identification, they have services, both hearing and speech, through the state up until age 5. So they actually generally come with their speech already being covered by outside sources. So there is also not a whole lot of even the few pediatrics that we have having speech within Duke. So it's also that where we're at, our speech department doesn't really have people who've specialized in working with children with hearing loss, whereas that's where Beginnings has really those resources for those kids.
You said most of the pediatric program implant recipients go
to UNC, yeah. And UNC does have, what's it called? CASTLE is their program for acquired speech language that they start from toddler age up. So I've had a few patients, of my pediatric patients go there, but there definitely is less on my side, but some territorialism in the area. So typically if they go there for speech, they disappear from my world of implants and become their world of implants. So there's definitely some of that that in the past has actually been reluctance on our surgeon side to push them towards some of those programs because they know that the patients will then disappear.
So you mentioned how audiology is very separate from your CI program. So if you have a bimodal user, are you helping both of their ears? Or just audiology too?
I assess and usually give them suggestions on their hearing aid ear, but I do not directly address it.
So if they need programming of a hearing aid, they have to go to audiology.
Or we have a lot of patients from 3 hours or more away, so their hearing aids are actually taken care of more locally. So a lot of them, it's giving them recommendations, telling them, hey, this looks like this, or your hearing aid audiologist that's been recommending that you get a new hearing aid. Yeah, you should do that, or I'm not showing that you're showing any benefit from a hearing aid on that ear. I'm not really sure new technology will really give you much benefit. So I definitely discuss their ear with them, and it's also going to be interesting. Advanced Bionics just announced the release of the Phonak Link, which is a hearing aid that is truly going to be bimodal with the NAIDA hearing aid, in which Duophone and all of those things are going to be able to go between the Advanced Bionics NAIDA
Directional mic
and
processing?
the link, stereo zoom. So that's going to be an interesting world because it's actually going to be a kit option in Advanced Bionics that they'll be able to get that hearing aid with their NIDA.
Really?
And so certainly,
So insurance will pay for the hearing aid.
they're paying for the kit, and yes, there happens to be a hearing aid in that kit, which is kind of the way actually that hybrid has been addressed a lot. But so, I mean, it's definitely possible for me to get Target and technically do the programming, but I don't have a Verifit in my little world, and going down and encroaching on audiology space and use is sometimes a little bit harder. So, I'm actually working on getting with audiology to even discuss this because I'm not even sure they really know what's coming up.
It seems like something's going to have to change in that dynamic, whether you get the programming capabilities or there's something coordinating to the
One of
plan
the
or
interesting
something.
things in the setup that Advanced Bionics has is you program the implant first, and then you print off a report that gives directly what needs to be done in the hearing aid to kind of match the programs, so that if you are handing it off to another audiologist, they at least know, okay, this program is the phone program, and so it needs to match, here, or this program is Duophone or Zoom Control. So there is definitely that part of it that they've made it helpful if you are passing it off to be able to have that relationship and kind of make sure that it's getting programmed.
And interesting when you think about unbundling too, what that's going to cause for people, because it's already interesting with all of the assistive technology that they give, because patients don't then expect to have to pay for anything, but at a place like this, they would still have to pay a hearing aid fee, and then it's just
Is it normal? I obviously am not an implant person. Is it normal for it to be so separate like that, or is that a atypical setup on the
hearing aid.
on the hearing aid and the implant audiology being so?
It's
Distinct.
probably 50-50. I see, a lot of places. It also kind of depends on how many implants they do. Those of us who are very much focused on implants sometimes only stay in that world, whereas those who may only do an implant patient or two a week that also do hearing aids as part of their regular job are probably more likely to take care of those patients.
The other ear too.
We're actually working with some of our more remote locations. We were just approached that there's an audiologist in Wilmington who wants to be able to do the programming and refer the patients for implantation, but then have those patients back for their cochlear implant programming and things, so they can continue care for both ears, and also not have the burden of the patient having to travel 3 hours just to get their implant programmed when they're right next to home.
How comfortable do you feel with pediatric cochlear implants, like working with babies? Well, 12 months, but babies.
I'm okay, it's not my best area, I'll be honest. One, being alone and trying to do it all on my own is a little bit challenging. Having to train the parents and trying to be the ones doing CPA, playing with their child or midlining their child or things have definitely been some of my biggest challenges. It's that I'm comfortable with the testing, but getting the patient centered and midlined and things like that has been definitely my biggest challenge in trying to take on both roles of working with the child and keeping them distracted while also doing the programming and the testing.
Do you feel comfortable with besides the testing, using more objective measures to program the implants?
Like NRT
and supedial reflexes.
We have not actually done much in supedial reflexes. Actually, we haven't done any. We've looked into it, but again, the way our clinic is set up, I don't really have access to those measures to do right there. So we have not gotten into that as much. We depend more on NRT and then behavioral testing.
Do you use all 3 implants equally?
Not equally. When I came in, we were heavily Med-El and advanced bionics. Then it evened out for a little bit, and now it's a little heavier Med-El. Partially, I think Med-El's right down the road. The surgeons have an especially good rapport with Med-El. One of our surgeons in particular definitely really likes Med-El's device, the apical stimulation, the MRI compatibility. So especially from that surgeon, I'm hearing from patients even that he's recommending that implant. Whereas in the past, I've always tried to be fairly unbiased, show them all three. I mean, certainly based on other research that I've seen, that patients want some input. If they ask the right questions, I'll give them my input, but I also tell them that it's a lot based on lifestyle. That what might be right for me may not be right for you, especially because the daily care and outside use and what the accessories are and things like that are some of the largest differences between the two. That I want to know from them what's most important to them.
So you've really focused on the last 5 years, right, heavily on implants.
Yep.
How comfortable do you feel you will be coming into a setting where there's much more variety of the type of patient that might be seen on a given day, and getting back into diagnostics and hearing aids and
I have very, very few reservations about diagnostics, since to me that's such a part of what I do for implants. And these days, because I'm testing for residual hearing, I'm actually still facing, and working with the Bajas, I'm still facing a lot of those mixed, conductive, large discrepancies in hearing that I'm very comfortable with the diagnostic side of things. Hearing aids, I've kept my hand in Phonak just a little bit, partially because of advanced bionics, and also because of the cross aids and how that plays into our Baja program. But certainly on the larger side, it would take just a little bit of training, but I was always very comfortable. I still remember one of my supervisors once being, "Can you fit this hearing aid?" And I'm like, "Well, I haven't really fit it before, but sure." In my 4th year, and I had no problems because the software is so easy that once I have it down, I'm not worried about. It's just that initial getting back into it.
how do you feel about going from 100% of your caseload being CIs to maybe 25%?
I'm actually kind of excited. I kind of miss being able to do a little bit more. I'm sometimes a little bit jealous of my counterpart in Raleigh, who does diagnostics, hearing aids, implants. She actually does some of the STIB as well. There's times when I'm like, I wish I could do a little bit more, spread my wings a little bit more, have the variety of not feeling like sometimes it's doing the same thing over and over and over again. So I actually look forward to the variety. That's one of the things I've missed.
What do you think the hardest part of a transition from the type of role you're in now to this type of role would be?
I think one of the biggest things is both getting back into it while also supervising students. Is not just me learning it, but me learning and also being responsible for making sure they know it, and getting that initial step of I have to get back on track while also making sure that there's no detriments to their learning.
What do you think your general methodology for supervising students would be, since you haven't really done that before?
So it's definitely, all of mine is based off of my supervisors, where it was definitely, maybe once or twice show and then observe them doing it, giving help as needed, and the longer they go, the less help, kind of pulling back and letting them just take it. I had one supervisor who was great at midlining, and you just telling her what you were doing, but kind of supervising from inside the booth without really watching over your shoulder. So that's definitely how I would kind of base mine off of, is those supervisors who are very much, I want you to do it, especially early on, I'll be right here, and then the more independent you feel, the more I'll let you have that rope to, try on your own.
How do you handle it if you had a student who was struggling?
So-
One semester.
I'll be honest, I'm not absolutely certain. You know, I could see trying to give them the extra help, trying to, you know, maybe even see, you know, talking with them afterwards, you know, well, it looked like you struggled here, you know, why is that, you know, is there something you're not comfortable with? Are there things that we can do to help you, you know, get more independent in that? You know, do we need you to get with one of your classmates and practice masking, you know, because you really struggled on that? Probably be how I would approach it. Is trying to give them that support while also moving them towards independence and not just being like, okay, I can't keep giving you the support indefinitely because you won't always have that.
What kind of classes would you be interested in teaching?
So definitely, obviously, cochlear implants is one area, anatomy and physiology, oral rehab, basic amplification, audiometry diagnostics. The ones that I probably have the least interest in are vestibular and electrophys. But we also had, I don't know if you guys had, we had a counseling class.
I want to teach that one.
But, I'd actually be fine with it. We actually, one of the speech pathologists actually taught it for us, because I think it was one of the least
We've had all sorts of people
interesting.
teach it.
Yeah.
Pathologies. I'm trying to think, what was that class? Oh, genetics was the one Dr. Hood taught us, our first year. Yeah, though that class was very interesting because half of the class was actually student presentations. So you were assigned, like I had otosclerosis. So the first half of the class was you working towards a 30-minute presentation where then you taught the rest of the class about your genetic condition. So that was an interesting class in that way, that the second half, it was almost all us teaching each other.
Is Vanderbilt's on quarters or semesters?
Semester, I mean, they had spring, fall, and then summer.